I don't want it in a sense because I think it disrespects Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, you know, all the guys that prior to me, I never had a chance to play against. You know, what everybody's saying I am, I never had the chance to compete against other legends that was prior to me. When I hear it, I cringe a little bit because, you know, it's a little bit embarrassing because no one knows, you know. I never had the chance, once again, to play against those guys.
That one right there made me the greatest player of all time.
For
That's
so
what
many
I felt.
reasons.
I was super ecstatic to win one for Cleveland because of the 52-year drought. Like, I was ecstatic. Like, obviously, I showed that the first wave of emotion was when y'all everyone saw me crying. Like, that was all for 52 years of everything in sports going on in Cleveland. And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time.
I don't think there's any way that we can determine who the greatest player of all time is. I saw so many of the guys in your piece that you just ran, and none of them saw Wilt Chamberlain play. Someone who averaged 50 points a game, scored 100 points in one game. They have no idea of what he did, how he did it. They didn't see Bill Russell strangle the league for 11 championships. They didn't see any of that. So, you know, their perspective is limited.
And we compare MJ to obviously the greatest in the world today in a lot of people's eyes in LeBron James. What do you feel about those comparisons specifically?
Well, first of all, let's not take anything away from LeBron James, because LeBron James is a great basketball player, one of the all-time greatest that's ever played the game. LeBron James, to me, when you think about all-around basketball player, he probably is the best of all time, right? All-around basketball player. But when you want to say who's the greatest ever, it's still Michael Jordan.
You can answer. It's pretty straightforward, I think. What do you reckon?
Fine.
No,
I'm the best. Michael's second best. LeBron's third.
Because of Michael Jordan, you've seen a lot of other players, right? Me, every time I hear these discussions, I always shut people up because what I do, I always give it up to the guys before me, right? Like they say, oh, you this and you that. Say no. Wilt was the most dominant. Yeah. Michael Jordan was the greatest player. Magic was the greatest point guard. Charles and Karl Malone, the greatest point guards. That's it. Everybody else,
you better Tim Duncan.
Everybody else that come afterwards, they're just copycat.
Michael Jordan, and yet it bothers you when people talk about him as being the greatest player of all time.
Well, it bothers me because we all have our opinions, and I don't think that, you know, commensurate with what he's doing, what he's done, and how the game is going today, that he's better than Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Bill Russell, a number of people.
5. All time? All time. Mike, obviously. Kobe, 2. Shaq, 3. Hakeem. I would say Hakeem, 4. And Magic. Ooh.
I would say Jordan. Wilt, LeBron, Shaq, and Magic.
Do you think LeBron James is up there with the greatest players of all time?
Yes. I will, you know, depends on how you see, because according to the position that he plays, you know, when people start comparing him with Jordan, then that's not a fair comparison, because Jordan is far more superior player, and a very, very tough league, and very, very very creative.
Sure.
I mean, that's not taking anything away from LeBron James, because he's a great player. But it's not a fair comparison, because I think Jordan is much far superior player.
You can only choose one: LeBron, Mike, Kobe.
Jordan. Neither one of them. I'm not going to put that. I don't do that era. So you know what I'm saying? But if you want to, as the most dog one and going to take the more serious, and he going to win you championships and do things, it's Michael Jordan.
You took who?
No, you're not.
No, but I'm asking.
I took Jordan.
You took Jordan?
I'm never going against Jordan, dog. I've never seen. I thought Michael Jordan was Jesus Christ.
like playing to be Michael Jordan.
tells you that MJ
First
is
of all,
not as good as LeBron.
I'm just going to say this. Any media person that I see in person for the rest of my life who try to tell me LeBron James is good as Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of him right on the spot. Right on the damn spot. No question asked. The next person who walks up to me and say, LeBron James, who is amazing, as good as Michael Jordan or competes like Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of you right on the spot. And I'm going to take my chances with the judicial system.
Moses is the most underrated because, Kareem is the greatest. I mean, in terms of centers all time, Kareem is the number one guy. In terms of players all time, Kareem is still the number one guy. He's the guy you got to start your franchise with.
Because you get 20 years.
You get 20 years and you get leadership, you get excellence in terms of offensively and defensively, and figuring things out, and accomplishment. I mean, his numbers speak volumes. And just because he had a bad attitude, there are a lot of people who disrespect him, but he never had a bad attitude with me.
Ron have to do something, or can he do something where you would go, now I would look at him as the best player?
No, I think he certainly, just off the cuff, he's certainly the top 5 of all times. But playing against him and MJ, I think for me it's MJ all day long, only because how I played against him, and MJ just had everything, from mid-range to three-point to post-up game, and he could score and dominate in each position. LeBron is dominant. LeBron could do so many things on the floor. And
do you think LeBron's a better all-around player than Jordan?
It's hard. That's hard to say because LeBron is probably one of the best passers that the league has seen. MJ is probably the weakest part of his game. He didn't pass a lot, but at the same time, MJ didn't have any other weaknesses in his game. And defensively, he was a two-way player. Defensively, he was incredible and just as dominant.
Who's your top 5 basketball players? Top 5. Mike, Shaq, Kobe. Okay. LeBron.
The fifth one is always hard.
It could be a lot of dudes.
If I had to pick one player to start a franchise,
yes,
and I want to win championships, no one would ever guess. I've asked people that question they ask, and none of them ever guess who I would take. And if you take a guess who you think I would take.
Of all time in the history of
all
the
the players in the history of the game.
Wilt?
No.
Russell?
You're right. Bill Russell. Bill Russell won 11, I think, 13 years championship every year. And the year he didn't win a championship, he was hurt. I mean, the guy was just incredible. And think about it, see, people look at the score, look at statistics, see.
Yeah.
And Russell's statistics wasn't that bad because nobody didn't take shots. He was shooting a high percentage because most of his shots were dunks inside the key. And the guy was incredible. I mean, the way he played, And people were just shocked. They said, Russell, and they'll just look at stats and see the guy there 12, 13 points a game.
Sure.
But look at the intangible things. Hey, he's going to save you 30, 40 points.
I think when you put the greatest of all time right at the top of the list, Michael Jordan combined some elements that I haven't seen in a basketball player. The totality of his game is enormous. Because Michael had that swagger, he had that killer look in his face, someone who I greatly admire.
What's your most prized autograph? Well, the greatest of all times. He's right here in front of me. Signed a couple of my books for my young children, and I couldn't be happy.
Who is the better all-time player, LeBron or Michael?
Well, I'm going to say neither. In my opinion, neither one of them are. And I've been on record saying this. To me, the greatest player to ever play the game that I've seen is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And arguably the best basketball career ever, from grade school to high school to college to the NBA. There has never been a more dominant player that I've ever seen.
I'm going with Michael, Magic, Larry, Kareem,
and Hakeem Olajuwon would be in my top 5. But then after that, you got guys like Wilt.
LeBron's going to be in there? Hey, maybe not. Is LeBron going to be top 10 for you?
I would put Kobe over LeBron in my top 10. If I had to be a top 10, Kobe would be over LeBron.
It has to be Michael Jordan, just because of the expectation each night that people, I'm going to see Michael. What is he going to go for? 40? Is he going to score 50 tonight? Is he going to score 60? And he never let down, those people. He always came and put on a show. And while he was putting on a show, he's one of the hardest guys to guard. He can get to the basket, he can jump over you, he can shoot the jump shot, and he would let you know about it too. So he wasn't a guy who was quiet. He used to talk a little trash, and when I say little, that's just putting it nicely, but he was probably the hardest to guard because he was on stage each night and he brought it.
If Jordan is the best player you played against, is that right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did play against Jordan.
Okay. The
Sure.
second best player you played against is who?
I did play against Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. So, I think right there, I don't really have an order. I could think MJ's there, and then you have Kobe, and probably the second best player then LeBron.
To say who is the greatest, we will never know that. In my eye, Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player. But Michael and LeBron should never be really compared because it's almost like comparing Kareem to me.